Everyone out there in radio or internet land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. As always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 WIDR or Western Michigan University, no matter how dope or insightful they may turn out to be. First time listener, this is a weekly program where we come onto your radio dial and tell y'all what is really going on from a working class perspective, everything from what's going on here in Kalamazoo, Michigan, the so called United States, and the rest of the world. And in particular, the name of the show is Media Ciphers. So we are trying to kind of dig underneath the headlines, decode, and kind of read through the lines of the mainstream corporate media. So, we're going to be talking about, well, obviously a lot of stuff on today's program. I wanted to start with a couple of local items. And this one, unfortunately, I was trying to get I wasn't able to secure an interview yet, but some of you around campus may have been seeing that the Teacher Assistants Union is currently in a state, kind of a bargaining standstill. I'm going to read a little bit from Western Herald's article about it. Um, the TA union is negotiating graduate teacher assistant contracts with the university, specifically in sections pertaining to compensation and parental leave. The union's opening offer was an increase of 8% per year over the next 3 years and a doubling of the lump sum payment, which is what graduate TAs receive instead of health care. Unlike most other universities, WMU does not provide any access to healthcare for graduate TAs, said TAU Vice President of Grievances Donnie Pasmore. Instead, we're given a lump sum of money at the start of each semester, but right now that lump sum is $810, nowhere near how much insurance costs. We propose doubling that to $1,620. Yeah, that is really a drop in the bucket when you're talking about health insurance. The proposal was given to the university shortly before spring break. We were expecting that when we got back to the bargaining after spring break, there would be some sort of counter proposal. Instead, we were given research that the finance department had done about other universities and what they've compensated and what they're compensated. The impression that we are under is that they do not take our proposal seriously at all. We were just disappointed that wasn't any engagement with the conversation. We understand that in their eyes, we are paid comparably to other universities, but we aren't paid enough relative to the cost of living in Kalamazoo. WMU graduate TAs currently make $15,561 a year, which is $89 less than the Michigan poverty line of $15,650. International TAs are legally not allowed to work any job outside of Western, so the stipend we get is what they have to live off of, Pasmore said. Some of them, it's what their spouse and children have to live off as well, and that's just not reasonable. TAU communications officer Gray Hopkins weighed the negative aspects of being a TA at WMU. If I had gone to a different university that has better compensation, I wonder if I would be getting both a better education because I'm not worried about things like groceries, and if I would be getting a better experience as an educator because I would have better support, therefore making the students' experiences better, which is fundamental to why we're asking for that 8% increase, Hopkins said. At the end of the day, this is a job that we're not being fairly compensated for. It digs into my time studying and my personal life. Graduate TAs are currently allotted 5 days of paid time off per semester, with any additional time taken off qualifying as unpaid leave. We've really been hoping to try and get at least a couple of extra days off for people who need parental leave, and the university has been very resistant to that. The TAU's initial proposal requested the same amount of parental leave that WMU faculty receives, which is 6 weeks of paid leave. The university responded that they could not provide any more parental leave to graduate TAs. And yeah, I don't know if there's any reason given. The advice I've always been given is if you want a family, have it before grad school or after you get your doctorate, which doesn't take into account a lot of different kinds of families that are out there. It sort of narrows that field to being predominantly male, with the woman taking care of the child at home. Passmore continues, we want to open that door for multiple different kinds of families. I have had several friends within my own cohort that have had to make frustrating decisions based on needing to take care of children. However, the TAU has found success with codifying what some departments are doing to work around the little amount of paid leave time that TAs get, such as the chemistry department. A lot of the department heads are really willing to work with grad students. There's flexibility there, like giving someone a teaching situation that works better for them, like teaching online or from home. Although little movement has been made on the compensation and parental leave front, the university has been willing to discuss issues surrounding graduate TA job security. The way that the system is currently set up, there is no guarantee of employment for graduate TAs in between contracts. We've been trying to put in protections to make sure that TAs are better protected. If proposals continue the way they are looking, WMU will be at the cutting edge of graduate TA job security. We think it's amazing that we can be at the front of this movement and that our contract could be the example for everyone else. But a win in that department doesn't offset the fact that we need fair compensation. Hopkins highlighted graduate TAs as a fundamental aspect of WMU. One professor couldn't run as large of a class without TAs, Hopkins said. We are a fundamental part of the university. We teach most of the freshman and sophomore classes, and if we're not teaching them, we're helping with them. The TAU has started a petition so that WMU community members can support their cause. We're trying to get people to sign the petition to show support that we do deserve a raise, and more importantly, we deserve a reasonable conversation about it. The TAU is working to raise awareness within the WMU community on their fight for a fair contract. We want to show the university that this is something people care about and are willing to show up and fight for, Pasmore said. It's not going to go ignored if they keep ignoring us. This is something that people are noticing that people care about, and it's affecting the public image of the university. Hopkins emphasized that WMU is the university he wants to fight for. In my mind, union work is an act of love, Hopkins said. I wouldn't fight for this if I didn't like the university, if I didn't care about my cohort, if I didn't care for the advisors and faculty that have been so important for my journey as an educator and a writer. So we will link to both that article and the TAU's petition in our show notes. That's from our university's very own Western Herald. WMU Teaching Assistant Union at a Bargaining Standstill. That was written by Maddie Sneller, published on April 5th. And that really great work, by the way. Don't know them personally, but that's a that is some professional journalistic writing, which you honestly don't see a ton of these days. So kudos to them. I want to give a quick shout out. Some of you may have seen this if you've been walking around downtown, or you've been looking at you kind of have your finger on the pulse of Michigan politics. So there have been people going out there gathering signatures that's trying to do something about money in politics here in the state of Michigan. And if you've not heard about it, so Mop Up Michigan, and right now they've got there's actually someone right outside the building who's gathering signatures. I think it's specific to regulating utilities, which actually I ran across a couple of different news stories about that over the weekend when I was gathering news for today's show, and obviously that's a really significant problem here. If you you are my listener base, a lot of y'all live in the Vine. You live on a lot of those old historical houses, which just bleed heat. And we don't really have too many allies up at the state level. Actually, the board that deals with energy actually just approved yet another rate hike for energy here in Michigan. And particularly, I think when we have things like AI data centers on the horizon trying to gobble up more energy, this becomes all the more important. So like I said, there's somebody from Mop Up Michigan gathering signatures right outside the studio. So if you're on campus today, hey, you do your small part to try to get rein in the big money in politics. So I think with that, we're going to take just a quick little break. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at Media Cyphers on Facebook, YouTube, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Give me dialogue. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. Hello again, everybody out there in radio land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. So I want to pivot a little bit from some local stories talking about what's going on here in Kalamazoo. Take a look a little bit eastward to our comrades over in Ann Arbor, the University of Michigan, and we this is a ongoing story we've been covering for the last year and a half, 2 years. And as many of you know, U of M particularly showed up on our radar as one of the first universities that really capitulated to the Trump administration, almost prophylactically on the subject of DEI. Now, as many of you know, and particularly listening to the show, Trump administration has made no secret that is going off or going after schools, institutions, workplaces that have DEI policies in place. Ostensibly, they are accusing reverse racism, and we've already talked, on ad nauseum about how ridiculous the whole concept is. And for a little bit of historical context, diversity, equity, inclusion programs really took off just in the last couple of years. It was in a big part, it was a response to the Black Lives Matter uprisings of 2020. And, earlier than that, of course, going back to 15, 2014. However, and there's an asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. We've also talked about how DEI is it's kind of that is the liberal was the liberal establishment band-aid on a much bigger systemic issue. One of the main issues that Black Lives Matter has brought up in the decade plus since its inception is again the the violent nature of American policing. How American police, on average, kill more, people in their country than any other police force on the planet, and how it's, of course, disproportionately targeted at, Black folks, people of color, and you know, uh, as the years went by, and this has been very interesting for people involved in movement politics to see how things have kind of grown organically over this last decade. People have kind of become wiser and have gotten more radical with their demands. 2014, 2015, it was we need police oversight, we need body cameras, which was kind of a more liberal intervention to begin with that one could argue also kind of contributes to the pervasive surveillance state we've been living in for some time. And then, by the time you get to 2020, you have people, engaging in some very dramatic property destruction, police precincts being lit on fire. You have people saying defund the police, which is actually comes not from liberal performative circles, but from kind of radical abolitionist circles. Defund the police, take that money and allocate it to somewhere else. Of course, the response to that from the Democratic Party was to take a knee where the Shiki and engage in a lot of performative politics. The one actual piece of legislation that was supposed to have legs, the George Floyd Act, did not actually get anywhere. And during the Biden administration, while you concurrently saw more of these DEI initiatives popping up, which is again meant to deal with kind of like cultural education, and more kind of centered around liberal identity politics. You also had the Biden administration dramatically increasing money, personnel funding to police departments across the country, and ICE, which, as we know, has become a tremendous problem since Trump got back into office. But of course, before then, ICE was still kidnapping people and violating people's rights. They were just doing it a little bit more quietly, the last administration. So you might be wondering, this is all okay. So circle it back to DEI. So part of the problem is because the Democratic Party was not willing to actually accede to their base and the more kind of radical and timely demands of that base, it made the backlash, the white lash of 2024, all the more plausible, and it became kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the Trump administration has chosen kind of DEI as its cause du jour because it's again it is not that DEI was in the it's, at least the way it's practiced by a lot of people in the liberal class. It was never particularly radical. Now that's not to say there weren't people teaching like kind of injecting some class consciousness and more of the Combahee River Collective type identity politics that are all again are also imbued with class analysis. But it is to say that the DEI in its inception was kind of meant to be this more liberal, quiet bandage over the issues brought up by Black Lives Matter, and the Trump administration for kind of two reasons. It is easy to for them to target DEI because this was people have kind of like an approach to it in the first place where this isn't really bringing about the radical change that is necessary. It's good. It is good for people to have cultural education. And of course, the Trump administration, a lot of that worldview and people with that worldview got scared poopless by the uprisings of 2020. And one thing that they kind of zeroed in on with some degree of savvy was the amount of white people who were out in the streets protesting in 2020 for Black lives. And that scared a lot of people who, are again the guardians of racialized capitalism because the idea of young white people expressing like real and learned solidarity with other fellow workers who happen to be black was terrifying and had implications of like really knocking over the apple cart. So while DEI itself was never meant to be particularly radical, it does there is kind of this radical undercurrent where when you create solidarity and empathy between segments of the working class that the ruling class wants to be separated and diametrically opposed to one another, that creates more solidarity among workers, which becomes a really huge problem for capitalism. So yeah, again, a lot of people have asked is like, is it just because they're racist or is it because they want to, again, they're pro-capitalist and stuff that they're going after the DEI? And the answer is yes, yes, and both all of the above. And you have people in the administration who are attacking it for different reasons, but that's generally the core of it. Now, with all that table setting, I wanted to actually dive into this pretty good article from Bridge, Michigan. The Rise and Fall of DEI at the University of Michigan. It's written by Kim Kozlowski, Kim Kozlowski, and published on April 9th. The University of Michigan's multi-million-dollar initiative to address diversity, equity, and inclusion began in response to a social media post in 2013 by the Black Student Union that went viral. What's it like being Black at U of M? Hashtag BBUM. The online conversation was part of a long history of activism at U of M to improve the campus climate for Black students and demand that the university increase Black student recruitment and enrollment. It came years after the Black Student Union, formed after the 1968 assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., joined forces with other student organizations in three separate movements known as the Black Action Movement. Many programs came out of that activism, including the Comprehensive Studies program, designed by students in 1969, along with U of M's Black and American Studies programs, said psychology professor Robert Sellers, U of M's first chief diversity officer. There always have been people at the University of Michigan who have been deeply committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, long before it was called that, said Sellers. But there's not one program that's going to address all of the challenges and all the problems. We had a systemic problem. The BBUM movement prompted the university to appoint a committee to study the issue, which recommended the DEI initiative. U of M could proactively address the issues instead of responding as they had in the past and negotiating with student demands. Because that's not how we solve problems at the University of Michigan, Sellers said. We bring in people from various perspectives and think about how we, as an institution, can be the very best that we can be. I would beg to differ on some of that, especially with the kind of infamous uh, university president at the time was Sonny Ono, Sonny. But I was about to say Sonny Bono, and I know that's not right. It'll come to me probably. Sorry. See, I do this show long enough. I gotta like. There's a lot of different names that juggle around in my skull here. Anyway, in 2016, U of M unveiled a DEI initiative with a summit plans at $85 million. Long before U of M's regents had hired Mark Schlissel as university president in 2014. They made it clear that they wanted him to prioritize DEI after U of M had to defend itself for the U.S. Supreme Court in lawsuits challenging its use of affirmative action in admissions, and the state later approved a ban on affirmative action, said Schlissel, who is now teaching at U of M in the medical school and molecular, cellular, and developmental biology department. Faculty and staff also voiced the sentiment, Schlissel told Bridge. They felt that this was an area we had been historically committed to. We weren't making adequate progress, and we really should double down on our efforts. U of M was not the only university working to address diversity, Schlissel said. What was different from other universities is that U of M generated a campus-wide strategic plan focused on the DEI goal that was put into action within Michigan's legal constraints. After 5 years elapsed, an evaluation of the initiative showed some success, but the percentage of underrepresented students increased for some, but not as much for Black students, Schlissel said. It was a mixed bag, but the idea was it would be a project that evolved. Schlissel emphasized that he is no longer part of high-level university discussions, but his observation is that many reasons led to the national backlash against the DEI effort, including political divides, heightened identity politics, the tenor from Washington, universities not always openly debating challenging issues, and a lack of a definition of what DEI really means. And I do really want to hit out that's again kind of like I said, it's such an amorphous term. It almost became hard for movement organizers to defend because DEI, like what is that? Are you talking about like a more diverse ruling class? Are you talking about the history of racial and class struggle in state of Michigan and the United States of America? Like it completely shifts depending on kind of the ideological worldview of who you were talking to. I mean, you could probably get a Republican version of DEI that just focuses on the history of multicultural capitalists. It never had enough specificity, I don't think, to really get people to rally around and defend it. Now, obviously, a lot of the uh, efforts we have seen, like the boycott of Target, things like that, are explicitly attacking corporations for backtracking from DEI. Because while DEI may be amorphous, it is pretty clear what the opponents of DEI are trying to attack, which is again education about the history of racism in the United States. So for people who are kind of defending DEI, there is this understanding that the people who are most of the people who are against it are coming in at it from a bad faith kind of racist perspective, i.e. the Trump administration. There are left critics of DEI, myself included, but that's generally not, it's not like the Trump administration are saying. It's like there's not enough talk about the book Cedric Robinson's Black Marxism. I doubt anybody in the administration has even heard of that book, but I would just kind of do quick aside say like I think that is a big, really at the core of the issue is like there was never really nobody really had a concise definition of what DEI was, which made it more like prone to the kind of full scale siege we've seen from the Trump administration. Not to say people have not been fighting back against that. The boycott at Target is a good example, but it is more a response to overt racism than DEI itself, I would argue. Anyway, going on. U of M responded to federal pressures the same way many universities did by closing down offices, purging words and information from websites. I hope that we find a way to resume in a more aggressive way our efforts to diversify the campus as a whole and to best support and create an environment for all members of our community. Cracks in U of M's DEI initiative may have started in tandem with national political issues, beginning with the outrage after the murder of George Floyd. Many institutions highlighted work they were doing, but a backlash ensued. Some believe identity politics fractured coalitions that supported DEI. Tensions on campus from the Israel Gaza conflict and a rise in anti Semitism and Islamophobia left some students feeling their needs were not prioritized. At the end of 2024, U of M announced it would no longer solicit diversity statements in faculty hiring, promotion, and tenure, shortly after it adopted a policy on institutional neutrality, which banned university leaders from voicing public opinions on political or social issues. And I'm just going to leave it at that. There's a little bit more in the article, but that is kind of the state of academia is, if you don't have a right outright ban, the universities can't come out and say we are following these racist diktats, but what we are seeing is kind of this self-censorship, this muzzling of academia, and the very tangible and real fear that Trump administration is going to retaliate either, and it can do in so many ways, either through the direct purse strings of the university. Stochastic terrorism is a big part of it too, singling out, doxing faculty, staff, students. Uh, Around the time Charlie Kirk was assassinated, this came back up. The way Turning Point USA would basically have this doxing list of leftist academics and student leaders that it would put out ostensibly for people to have like harassment targets. Um, and there's also, as we saw last year, although this has slowed down a little bit in the wake of the mass public pushback and some of the court decisions, the literal jailing, particularly of international students who share an opinion that the government doesn't like. Um, However, I think, in this vacuum that's been created by these, institutions kind of stepping away or surrendering to the Trump administration, we've seen a lot of students around the country really kind of step up and try to fill those gaps. There's there's like discussions and book clubs and stuff popping up here, even right here in Kalamazoo. So DEI has been attacked by the Trump administration, but I think maybe it gives us an opportunity to create an alternative that is more inclusive of education involving power dynamics, class struggle, racialized capitalism, uh, and other radical concepts that would honestly find much more difficult to find purchase at the university level. So yeah, what I'm telling you, start a book club or join one. Um, actually, well, I'll leave that till now till we can maybe get them on for an interview. Anyway, keep it dialogue. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at Media Cyphers on Facebook, YouTube, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Keep it dialogue. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. Hello again, everybody out there in radio land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Joined by my co-host Lawrence. Lawrence, how are you doing today?
I'm all right, man. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. It's a bright sunny day out on campus here. I've been having one of those like kind of car trouble, blah blah blah. My dad's dryer broke. That one of those kind of weeks. But I'm alive and I'm healthy, so there it is.
Yeah.
So very first
Uh,
world problems, really. I'm not dealing with drone
finish up,
missiles or anything.
yeah, I'm just trying to finish up these taxes, bro.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, yeah. It's tax day, everybody. Don't forget. That's wait, no, it's tomorrow. Tomorrow's tax day. So
Yeah, tomorrow's the
yeah.
end of the day. Yeah, just try and get this done for IRS uh be hitting be
I'll
hitting.
warn y'all, like, I know they're defunding Trump administration wants to defund the whole federal government. IRS is going to be last to go. It's the government is just going to be in ruins but there's still going to be a fully functioning IRS department that's going to send you an audit in the wasteland if you don't do your taxes. But anyway,
Yeah, pretty much.
so I think one obviously we broadcast out of university, and you were bringing this up before we got on, but I know we're talking a little bit about the kind of phony Hasan Piker controversy last week, but since then, he actually came to Michigan to stump with Abdul El-Sayed. I know that's something that we should probably hit on. Lawrence, I'm going to kind of just toss it to you. What did you kind of see, like what were some things that stood out to you, either from kind of their comments, or I know there were some very interesting exchanges with some of the journalists slash interviewers who showed up to the event.
Yeah. Shout out to Michigan and Michigan State. Shout out to
The
Rashida
Spartans.
Tlaib and because Rashida Tlaib showed up. Shout out to uh Summer Lee. Summer Lee showed up. Summer Lee, I swear, I wish that I want her to run. Like if I could have my dream ticket, if I could have my dream ticket of for president, it would be Summer Lee and Nina Turner.
Oof. Yes.
Like
Mhm.
that would be my one and two, my president, vice president. Summer Lee, as the folks on the Majority Report said, Summer Lee is the Tim Duncan of progressive politics. She's amazing. Um, but yeah, I watched the live stream. I watched the live stream of both events. Um, it was wonderful. It was wonderful to see. The reason why I just also wanted to bring I was bringing it up earlier is because we've had this the we see on the MAGA side, right? Recently, because of what Trump is doing with with Iran, right? You
Mhm.
see the right wing pundit class, not the voters, but the right wing pundits breaking with Trump, right?
You
Because
do, yeah.
Trump said he wanted to nuke Iran, a country of 92 million people. Like I know for Americans, we're very self centered. To get 92 million people to 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 nuke 92 million people in America, you would have to destroy California, Texas, and Florida, and parts of New York.
Just a little bit under a third of the population, basically.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You know what I'm saying? But it wasn't just that. Trump also posting the AI video or posting the pictures of him being Jesus that on Easter.
Ugh.
That's another part of that conversation that we're gonna have. But no,
Mhm.
Abdul had his rallies. Rallies are really good just to gauge to one to gauge how much your candidacy is actually attracting people, right? And just to see how much support you actually have out there in the real world, to touch grass, right? Basically, because
Mhm.
you gotta have boots on the ground. You gotta have people that will door knock. You gotta have people that will phone bank. You gotta have people who will actually put in the work in your campaign. And since this campaign is so close, the latest polls that I've seen, it's pretty much in a three-way split. Last I checked, Abdul was either second or third in the last few polls, right? But since this national attention of being with a controversial streamer, out of all the things in the world that we should be worried about, uh, AI poisoning AI in the data centers, poisoning cities right now, right?
Mhm.
The Health and Human Services are letting deli products are loosening regulation on deli meat. And that loosening of
Ugh.
regulation has literally put people in the hospital. These are recent things that have just happened, right?
Oh man.
Gas gas being so high right now that that when you go to the gas station, the cost just says y'all should just start walking, right? Like,
And just buy
right,
some shoes at this point. Oh man.
right.
It's
buy a buy a bike. Like that's what it
yeah.
says. How much is gas? It just says buy a bike, right?
Yeah.
We have all of these issues. We have all of these issues going on in the world. But for the last few weeks, CNN, MS Now, Fox News, the New York Times, so many of our mainstream news organizations was bringing up Hasan Piker, a Twitch streamer. Now, I have my disagreements with Hasan. I have my issues with the brother, but he's a democratic socialist. He's he's literally phone banked and raised money for not just Standing Rock, but for Black Lives Matter. Like he's literally put his body on the line at protests where the police officers where police officers were literally shooting at the protesters. Like he's really been in the field. You know what I'm saying?
hmm
Yeah, he has said some wild stuff on his streams, but that's kind of the nature of the beast when you stream for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you have to push back against people who are not as educated as you are, but will constantly and consistently comment to you. There's a difference. There's a difference between even our show because our show's not live stream or our show's
Mm-mm.
live stream, but we're not paying attention to the comments and comment section that we are getting while we're doing our stuff.
Mm-mm. Nope.
Hassan is
I mean, if
the
you're listening to the radio, you can shout something in the air, but I'm probably not going to
yeah, yeah, we're not gonna hear you.
hear it.
Like, we'll respond to the comments probably the next day, right? Like
hmm
when I think at one time in
We're
our
we're
history,
also a
we
local show, so like like the comments I get on the show, it's usually like bumping into people at the grocery store, you know. It's
yeah,
just
like if we did call-ins, if we let people call in and talk to us like the majority report or something, then yeah, we'll probably have to deal with some unhinged commentary once in a while. Hassan's dealing with that every 30 seconds. You
oh
know what
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying?
hmm It's,
Every
it's
30
like
seconds.
the bigger your platform, like the more attention you're gonna, good and bad attention. The trolls are gonna come after you, and he's very good at not letting himself get like too distracted by that too. And also, he does a really good thing where you don't necessarily debate trolls, but you can kind of use them for a teaching moment. Like they say something like objectively stupid or wrong to you, you can kind of make a quick aside. And it's like for everybody else who is watching and listening to this, here is why this is incorrect. This is why it's to borrow a term from a previous precedent, malarkey.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So the reason why I'm only bringing this up is because the king of the neoliberals, Ezra Klein, who I find to be very disgusting. The man who said Charlie Kirk was doing politics the right way came out in the New York Times.
didn't he? Is this also the same guy who had like he was going after Hassan for a while? Or I might be confusing him with another liberal
Oh
streamer
no
or
no
whatever.
so no so the Bulwark also had a thing. The Pod Johns also had him at Crooked Con and had Hassan speak again. Hassan and streamers like him have were at the DNC. They were streaming from the DNC when for VP Harris's uh uh thing at the DNC, right? They were there, right? Sorry if you hear some beeping in the background. There's some construction that's by me right now. Um, so it's not like this man or people who think like him have not been in Democratic circles or around Democratic candidates. He was also in the field for Bernie Sanders. He was also in the field for AOC. He he consistently has Ilhan Omar and Ro Khanna and recently Tom Steyer, the billionaire. Like he will debate and or have people on his platform, even his uncle when he was working at the Young Turks, and now since he doesn't work at the Young Turks, he will hash out his arguments and debates with people who are good faith uh commentators and people who have power, right? So Ezra puts out an opinion article in the New York Times, basically saying Hassan's not the enemy, and then they changed the headline to "This is why we can't have a left wing Joe Rogan," right? Because the reason why you would have a left wing Joe Rogan is that you would have someone who can amplify the progressive messages in the base, right?
Hmm.
That's the whole purpose. But the Democratic Party doesn't want that, as you
No.
as you saw with the Democratic leadership siding with AIPAC, which is a whole totally another story that we're going to get to. The Democratic Party wants what the Republican Party has. The Republican Party, uh, the Republican Party treats its voters the same way that someone would treat a dog. When I say that, as in the dog must be obedient and obey, and whatever, and the Republican Party will cater to that need, right? Of them
Hmm.
obeying and following their orders. The Democratic Party doesn't have that with their voters. Their voters are a much wider coalition. But what they have been doing is they've been catering to the right wing of the party, the neocons of the party. They've been trying to draw in Republicans and push out left wingers, people like us, the
Yeah.
Democratic
Hmm.
Socialists. And because you cannot argue, because just like MLK, just like Mandela, just like X, just like Kwame Ture, I could go on and on. Since you can't argue the merits or of what you're talking about, of what he's talking about, in other words, ending our forever wars, not funding genocidal regimes like Israel, like the state of Israel and what Israel's doing to Gaza, uh, fighting for Medicare for all, fighting for universal basic income, fighting for universal college and tuition, right? Since you cannot argue these policies away because the majority of the base agrees with them, you must smear the person who is saying it. You can't kill the message, so now you must kill off the messenger.
I
And
do want
they've been
to kind of circle back to Abdul El-Sayed, and I, the I kind of bounce off what you're saying. All this hyper focus on Hassan is now like Abdul kind of got like some secondhand attention from that, and
yeah,
like the main issue is like they're going after this guy. They're drawing more attention to somebody whose ideas and policy recommendations, both Hassan and Abdul, are popular with a plurality of the rank and file of the Democratic Party. Most Democrats support Medicare for all. They support reining in military spending. They support universal college education. All of these things that the corporate line of the Democratic Party are fine anathema. And it's hard to tell if this is just like how insulated the consultant class is, but again, by going after Hassan, you're drawing more attention to him, segments of the population that maybe would not have otherwise heard of him, and that it does the same thing for Abdul El-Sayed. You're actually making his campaign, you're elevating his campaign by turning this into like some sort of national controversy because people are going to be like, oh, who's this Abdul guy? What kind of platform does he have? And most of the Democrats that he's trying to appeal to in this primary and be like, I agree with all of their ideas. Whereas, Abdul's opponents are like, Mallory McMorrow and the other one, I can't even remember the other one, but they're trying to do kind of take something from the Alyssa Slotkin playbook. Alyssa's talking, where they posture as like, I'm the new generation of the Democratic Party. I have fresh new ideas, but they're literally the same ideas that the Democratic Party has had for 30 years. And a lot of times they don't even have very good or detailed platform pages. It's all vibes with these folks. So you have them and their strategy of getting the same kind of group of old, low information, diehard blue no matter who people to come out and vote for them. Abdul is kind of placing his bet on young people. That's I think that's the biggest reason he decided to stump with Hasan Piker, over at the Michigan State. And I mean, it remains to be seen if it's going to pay out for him. But if there is a strong youth turnout in the primary, I think he's going to win it. And that's also the thing they pollsters have a hard time gauging that very well. A lot most of the time when elections go in a way that pollsters uh, do not think, a lot of the youth vote is a really big factor in it. And I should also mention, even a lot of these old dyed in the wool older Democrats are just as fed up with the Democratic establishment as the young folks are. I mean, that's why you're seeing, even like you mentioned, Ezra Klein, the Pod Save America, which is kind of like middle of the road centrist liberal podcast. They had Hassan on. These folks are going to the left out of necessity because they're watching in real time their leadership in the Democratic Party bringing a plastic butter knife to a gunfight against a fascist administration.
Bro, absolutely. Um, and this is why the the one smearing of progressives, and it's the left punching. We've seen this left punching, right? We've been watching this same playbook since Jesse Jackson. R.I.P. to Jesse Jackson. R.I.P.
Mhm.
to GOAT. Right? Chuck Schumer back in the 80s bragged about killing off Jesse Jackson's campaign. When Jesse
Yep.
Jackson was talking about having a rainbow coalition, when Jesse Jackson was talking about, even back then, having solidarity with the Palestinian people, in the same strategy that he was using, talking about um, we need to be more moderate in our politics. Even back then, lost to Reagan twice. The
Twice.
reason why I'm bringing up that history is because Reagan was the prototype to Trump.
Hmm. And it was
Reagan and
by the way, it was one of the biggest landslides in electoral history. I think like Minnesota and maybe one other state voted for was it not Mondale? Was it Mondale?
I,
Or maybe yeah.
I don't even care about who the
Yeah.
Democrat was. The Democrat that they ran was a neoliberal centrist who
Hmm.
tried to be diet Republican, and we've seen this playbook. Mallory McMorrow and I think it's Haley Stevens. Both of them have been doing the, hey, we're more moderate, and those are the other people who are running against Abdul. They're like, hey, we're more moderate, and we are pro-Israel in a state, and I want to remind people, in a state where 20% of the Democratic voters said we will not vote for the Democrat
Yeah.
because of their policies on Gaza. The uncommitted vote came from Michigan.
Hmm.
So you
And keep in
have,
mind, like this is now, this is 2026 is much different than even like 2023. You have pluralities of leftist, liberal, conservative voters who are very much against the genocide in Gaza. It is a historically bad position to have, to side with Israel, in any electoral context. And it's kind of, I think right now the strategy is just not to really talk about it that much, but like, yeah,
so
it's
get into the other story about the Democrats, about the Democratic leadership siding with AIPAC and refusing to reject AIPAC funding even during the primary. We're gonna get to that story, but and the only reason why I want to bring that up because I talked about polling, the recent polling that I've seen has Aldu has uh, El-Sayed in third. So the margin of error is within 4%, but they have Stevens at 27%. This is the Upswing research. That's the source, and this is from 3/12/26 with a 4% margin of error. They only polled like 600 people in Michigan, but Stevens was up by 27%. Morrow was up by 25%, and Abdul was up by 23%, and 25% was undecided. So it's within the margin of error that this race that Abdul could be winning. Now that was Emerson College had Abdul in third place, but only by again with 4.4 with a 4.4 margin of error, and that was back in January. That was on the 29th, right? And that was before all this controversy. That was before all of the we shouldn't be platforming a sign. Why are people talking about this race? And again, I want to remind everybody, Abdul wrote a book with Bernie Sanders about why Medicare for all is a thing. And if you haven't read it, it's in the local library. Please go and get it. It's a fantastic breakdown on why this system should work. But if you care about the betting odds, I don't want to bring up the betting odds or Cauchy and all that stuff. But they have Abdul in second place, and they have Morrow in first. Stevens and Morrow was splitting the AIPAC vote because they were both selling out to the lobbyists
Hmm.
and nations like that. They're splitting that vote, and because I think it was Morrow who recently came out and said she's not for Medicare for all because Donald that means Donald Trump will be for it. Like Donald Trump will be in control of it. It was
What?
such it was such a garbage answer that I had to rewatch it twice. She said that she's not for universal health care because that means the government will be in control of your health care. I'm like, oh, that is such bad framing. God, you're garbage at this. Stop
This
it.
actually, this is there's a good abject lesson in this. So, like, the UK has had, they've had liberal prime ministers, they've had conservative prime ministers, but the NHS has been around through both. And it's funny that, like, I know Boris Johnson was under his administration and the Tories when he was running, they were really trying to pull, pull back and privatize NHS. The public response was so, like, it became such a toxic thing that they had to kind of pull back from some of their more radical plans. So, like, it's that's just a nonsense argument. Like, if you got a critical mass of people in this country to get Medicare for all through, you're not. I mean, also just look. I don't think that's going to happen under the Trump administration. It's a nonsense argument. He's probably going to veto it. Now, is there some universe where maybe he thinks like in like just like this, 8-dimensional fart chess, he's gonna like pass it and then that'll like cement his hypothetical third term. Maybe, but it's just that's a nonsense argument. Like, you know, I think most people understand like, Medicare for all would probably not pass or would get vetoed under a Republican president unless there was a critical mass of people in Congress to veto the veto, which would is possible, but it's probably going to take a while. So I hadn't heard that. That's one of the most nonsensical things I've heard. Trump's not Trump is not going to be around forever. Even if he becomes a dictator and like decides to take a third term, the dude's in his 80s and he lives off Big Macs. All right, he is not going to be president forever.
It's for me. For me, tell me that you don't understand the moment that you're in without telling me you don't understand the moment that you're in. You lived through COVID. Multiple people went bankrupt because of their hospital bills, and people died because they couldn't get coverage, or they died because they couldn't get treatment. Right? You lived through COVID. We know for a fact around 33, what was it, 33,000 people die every year because they don't have coverage, or the lack of coverage. You have people because of this president that is deciding either to get gas or get groceries, but they can't get both because of the inflation that's been taking place, because of the big ugly bill and the tax cuts for the rich. And the biggest burden to families is paying insurance, and the biggest burden to companies that you are getting donations from is paying for medical insurance. And you don't want to take that off the table. You don't want to take that off the table for your constituents. Tell me you're not meeting the moment. Tell me you don't understand the moment without saying you don't understand the moment. Right?
Yeah, no,
You're
for
you're
real.
not you're not you're not here. You're not seeing this. And it's even more of a reason why I'm glad that Abdul is going on the I've Had It podcast. I'm glad that he's getting more national attention. I'm glad that he's speaking with whoever will give him a mic. Hopefully, we can try to get him on our show, right?
Oh yeah, I'm
Um,
sorry. I keep meaning to message the campaigns. Like, we also need to get Dion Harris, who is
yeah,
actually a pretty credible run here in our district, and is actually has some progressive policy plank. So yeah, that's another one on the short list we need to reach out to.
yeah, yeah. The primaries in 2 months, folks. Primaries in 2 months. We ain't got time. We ain't got time for the flim flam and horn swallow, right? It's we if it wasn't important for Abdul to run, if it wasn't important for them to smear Hasan, then they wouldn't be wasting time doing so. If they didn't fear that someone like himself or others who've been speaking truth to power, if it wasn't if it wasn't important, then they wouldn't. If they did not feel that us speaking truth to power and having uh, politicians who will fight for us was not important, then they wouldn't be smearing Abdul in the same way that they did Zoran Mamdani. Remember, Cuomo tried to use Hassan to bash Zoran in the same way. They're doing the same thing to Abdul. Now, is it a coincidence that the two Muslim people who are running for office is being smeared
Hmm.
by another brown Muslim person? I'm not saying that it's racist, but hey, it was all I'm old enough to remember when President Obama was when candidate Obama was running, and they tried to use Jeremiah Wright, a black pastor, to bash him,
That's
right?
right. Yeah. Hmm.
I'm old enough to remember when VP Harris was running. They were using the fact to say that because she's mixed, that she wasn't black. Remember, these it, th- I'm not saying that these racist things are not a part of the smear against candidates, but when you see the pattern,
Yeah. Hmm.
right? But yeah, um, that that
It
story,
makes you wonder, is what
it makes you
it.
wonder, right?
Yeah.
Like, it just makes you wonder. But yeah, so before we bash on the Democrats anymore, as the Christian that's on this panel, I just want to say, uh, to my other fellow Christians who saw the president depict himself as Jesus, and
Hmm.
he was healing a sick white person who kind of looked like Epstein. Yes, it was funny.
Yeah.
Yes, it was funny. Okay, I'm not gonna sit here and act like it was not funny. But also, was that blasphemous? Absolutely. That
Like
like
dictionary definition. Oh my God, that
like
was
like like it was already bad enough that when he swore in 2024 when he was swearing in to be president that he didn't put his hand on the Bible. What Christian person doesn't want to put their what person who has the faith of Christianity is afraid of putting their afraid of putting their hand on God's instruction manual?
you
I
know,
want you
I
to sit.
man, I think
We're
that something that's interesting about this incident is like, there is like a principal contradiction in this, Trump's support among evangelical Christian Americans. And of course, that contradiction is that in order to push this a white Christian nationalist agenda, their vehicle is like the most like unholy person who's ever had the presidency. I mean, obviously, he's not religious in any way, shape, or form. And just looking through the track record of his life, this is a deeply amoral person. They, in order to get the things that they want out of him, they literally did a deal with the devil. And him cheerfully like tweeting this AI slop of him, depicting himself as Jesus, is they cannot those
he
people
did
have to look at that. They
not
cannot, that
Easter.
contradiction is pushed to the front. They have to grapple with it. I've seen, and a lot of them are grappling with it on social media. A lot of people on True Social that are like MAGA people are calling him the Antichrist. It's like, for some people, it fused out their brains. It really, really, really did. And again, it made it impossible for them to not have to grapple with that contradiction, because those people started bringing up all of the other moral and ethical failings that they had been happy to ignore in Donald Trump, because and what all the Supreme Court appointments that are pushing the anti-abortion line and making it easier for Christian schools to take over. Well, I should, in air quotes, Christian schools. This is again a lot of these people couldn't tell the Bible from um, you know a, a Denny's order menu, but
Yeah,
it was very interesting to see them have to deal with that contradiction in real time. And the fact that, like, to my surprise, a lot of people were, again, people who had been in the paint for Donald Trump since, for 10 years now, being like, no, this is a step too far. You can't be doing that. Um, it- you know,
it wasn't it wasn't bad enough when he held the Bible upside down for a photo op and he sprayed protesters. That was in his first administration. This is this is it's bad. It was bad when he said when he couldn't name a Bible verse that he loved. Um, and then when he tried to, he called it 2 Corinthians. Like there were. It's bad enough
oh,
that
yeah.
this man is a serial adulterer who also has allegedly uh essayed little children, little girls with Jeffrey Epstein. There's too many things that this man has done in his in the first president before he got to the White House, uh with make with uh being racist when it comes to leasing to housing, not treating his workers well, skipping contractors that were working for him, hiring illegal immigrants, and then trying to get them deported when they ask for more money. Uh, this is before he was president. Then stealing as president, stealing money from the American people, bombing brown and black people in countries that didn't attack us, destroying national trade deals. That was in his first term. Now he was threatening to nuke a country full of innocent people because they did not capitulate to his whims. And now, as a man, that's supposed to be a man of faith, on Easter, around Easter, this brother who does not sleep For some reason, our president just
He's
doesn't sleep.
up
He
all
ate his
night
meal.
tweeting, tweet.
Up all night tweeting. He retweets a picture of himself as Jesus. Now I know that there are people because I saw the comments. It was dumb, but I'm going to address it now. There were people who were saying, "Y'all didn't say anything with President Obama when people were making those same type of pictures about President Obama." You know what? I thought it was stupid then too. But here's a clear difference. President Obama didn't repost it.
No.
He didn't even
Yeah.
acknowledge it. He thought it was stupid. He said it was stupid. The Muslim socialist antichrist that the Republicans kept calling President Obama said the pictures of him as a celestial figure was doing too much. He rejected it. What did this president do? This president amplified it. This president shared it. This president thought that it was a good idea that his name and his likeness is attached to this image.
Yeah. Also, we had a rare moment where, that the handshake meme, we had a rare moment where like Christian evangelicals and the people running Iran's government and social media were in complete agreement. Iran actually came out with a statement talking about like that again how you know uh, the evil of blaspheming one of their prophets, because in the Muslim religion, Jesus is he's not son of God, but he's a prophet, and he's a prophet of it was a peace and friendship, I think,
Yeah.
and and also coming to the defense of the Pope, who in the middle of all that, Donald Trump found time to try to bully the Pope on Twitter, or Truth
Because,
Social, whatever.
because, because the Pope dared to say, hey, we shouldn't be killing innocent children. Hey, we shouldn't be going to war unnecessarily. Hey, depicting yourself as Jesus is not okay. You know all the normal things that a Christian would say, the Pope said. And Trump is like, man, he's bad on he's not tough on crime. The Pope is not a governor. The
No, no.
Pope is not he's
Pope
not
is
a
not a crime
congressperson.
fighter. I mean, I wonder if Trump heard the term Pope mobile and just took it too literally. I don't know.
Dog, dog, the fact that I really wish that one time, I really wish the because the Pope's from Chicago. I really wish just one time that the Pope would have been like, Donald, dog, go eat go eat a glizzy, bro. I need you to go sit down and go eat a glizzy. That's what I need you.
Mhm.
I wish he would have got real American very quickly. Hey yo, Donald, you disrespecting. You got too much dip in your chip. Okay? You disrespecting. Calm that down. Go you gonna mess around and find out, bro.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
because I'm
Mhm.
hey, just because I'm the Pope doesn't mean doesn't mean I've been a Christian all my life.
He's also
But
from Chicago, so
right, I really
uh,
wish one time I really wish he would have been like, try Jesus, not
yeah.
me,
Mhm.
because I throw hands. Okay. I really wish. But no. But getting back to the topic, this is why again, I'm not giving grace to um Alex Jones or Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson. These are the same or Megan Kelly. These are the same troglodytes that a week or two ago was saying, especially Megan Kelly. She said that if Trump drops a nuke on somebody, she would still vote for the Republicans because she hates Democrats. Tucker Carlson literally was in the White House clapping for Donald Trump like he was a SEAL after he kidnapped the president of Venezuela. Candace and others was literally praising Donald Trump and his policies when they were sending ICE into Chicago and into other cities for no reason at all. I give none of them grace. None of them. I give none of them grace for now seeing that the Mad King is the Mad King.
Yeah,
Now
I'd
since it
almost say like for me, it's less like I don't think any of these people had a real like come to Jesus moment so much as let's to kind of use a metaphor. They were on the Titanic and they saw that iceberg coming. They just happened to get into a lifeboat before everybody else did.
no no
This is like
no no
this ship is not going down.
no no they're getting into the lifeboat after trying to tell people after the iceberg then hit the iceberg has already hit the
Mhm.
the Titanic. They are the ones that's like, hey, we should be in the lifeboats first.
Oh,
That's
yep.
them. That's, and it's like, nah, son, nah, son. You were saying, hey, the Titanic could hit that iceberg and we'll be fine. That was
Oh
you.
yeah, yeah.
That
It's unsinkable, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah, yeah. It's unthinkable. That was them. So nah, they get no love. They get no love. They get no respect. Just because a broken clock is right twice a day, and they just happen to be right by denouncing Trump now, doesn't take away from the fact of you helped amplify and normalize this troglodyte. You helped bring this Nazism into the American consciousness. You helped foment this fascism. I
You
give
know,
you no grace because you have not done any penance.
one thing that I like this is you've heard it from all of them, whether it's Tucker Jones, Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, Candace
Also,
Owens, the notorious MTG. Um, I shouldn't even say it.
oh,
But all of them, it's almost like it's been written at HQ or whatever. This line, like, this is not the man that I supported. This is not Trump's changed. He's changed so much, and like for the life of me, like, what changed? Like he has been the most consistently inconsistent, amoral, dotard. And like I feel like they're reaching for that line. They need something to say to excuse supporting Donald Trump for so long, but not really, not much has really changed with this dude. I think, the big maybe like, he's gotten a little bit more senile during, his second administration, but like for the most part, this is the same guy who came down the escalator in 2015 and called all immigrants, rapists and criminals. Like, what exactly changed about Donald Trump that made you finally see the light? Like, it's just like,
he was just in the last election saying that Haitian people eat cats and dogs. He was just jacking off of, like, literally giving fellatio to microphones while on the campaign trail. That was this past election. That wasn't last election. That was this past election. He was talking about Arnold Palmer's phallus on the campaign trail. That's this person, bro. Like, there is nothing that, like, Donald Trump has said in multiple interviews, recent interviews in the last few months, that he does not believe that he's going to heaven. So he's been doing actions that will ensure that he's not going to heaven. He has made sure that bombs, that money and bombs have been going to our our state actor in the region, Israel, and that our soldiers are committing war crimes like killing innocent women and children. That was our doing. We did that. You
mhm.
want to know the type of person that doesn't make it into heaven? The type of person that thinks that we are protecting the freedoms and liberties of Americans by killing innocent women and children. You're not making it into heaven. He knows this. And the reason why you're doing that is to stop people from investigating the fact that you like to diddle little children with your best friend Jeffrey Epstein.
Yep.
And
Hmm.
Israel, the state of Israel has that blackmail on you.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of a funny coincidence that like as soon as Trump gestured towards a ceasefire, we got some more stuff coming out about Epstein, Melania making that very bizarre speech.
Oh, what? We haven't got to that yet. We haven't got to that yet, which we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
I'm glad you brought it up, bro.
It just I saw this meme. It reminded me of anybody who's a fan of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. There's this weird episode where Charlie writes a musical and Dee, the female, she's like the one character in the gang of misfits, and they're all playing these roles. She's like this princess, and like she's uncomfortable with the whole storyline. She's supposed to fall in love with like a little boy, so she like ad libs. It's like, but I did not have any sexual relations with a child, and I just wanted to make that very clear. That's just like,
Dog, dog,
uh,
the fact that the so Melania, the thing that made me laugh was Melania. What was it? 2, 3 weeks ago, she did the AI. She walked down the White House with the robot, the AI robot, right? And
oh,
the
I
AI
forgot
robot
about
was
that.
yeah,
It's just
and the AI robot was supposed to be a way to help people. Was the help with homeschooling, help with education, and the AI robot had better English than she did. Like, and for her to now come out with the I don't know that I do not know Epstein. I only partied with him in Maxwell, and I don't know. I did not know him. Do not put my name next to them. And her former best friend, who got deported because she's also was an immigrant, then came out after that press conference and said, "Melania, I will drop all the dirt on y'all.
yep.
I
Mhm.
know, I know what y'all did." And this is after all the stuff that we've already seen with Michael Wolff and his multiple interviews with Epstein about uh in what Epstein said in his own words. The fact that people forget that Trump tried to hire Jeffrey in his first administration. He tried to hire him and put him in his cabinet. People forget that Jeffrey knew everything about what was going on in the White House because they were best friends. They talked all the time. Melania, which is this also recently came out, and this is information I didn't know. A year prior to getting involved with Donald, she was physically involved with Epstein.
Like a friends with benefit situation, or to
Yeah,
put it charitably, but it's yeah.
yeah. Epstein Epstein smashed Donald Trump's wife before Donald Trump did. A year prior to them getting involved with each other.
Yeah. Speaking of the
Allegedly.
Bible, I mean, apparently she knew him in the biblical sense. I don't know. It
Yeah,
seems like
I was I'm gonna say again, I'm gonna say allegedly. Because you also have to
allegedly,
remember
allegedly.
you have to allegedly, and you also have to remember when Donald Trump did his actions with Melania on the Lolita Express, allegedly, again, because I don't want us to get sued, that was while he was still married to his second wife. Again,
Mhm.
Christian evangelicals. Look, I understand that y'all don't like abortion. Like y'all think that y'all, even though in Matthew is, even though in Numbers, I think it's Numbers chapter 5, verse 11 through 33, God is okay with abortions, but that's a different conversation. Um, and yes, if you do not believe me, I want you to go to your Bible, read Numbers chapter 5, verses 11 through 33. If you don't believe me. But anyway, it bothers me. What bothered me about that whole situation is that the thing that made me laugh about that whole situation is nobody in mainstream media was talking about the Epstein files. Nobody was talking about trying to get justice for the Epstein files, except Ro Khanna. Again, shout out to Ro Khanna. He's been out here doing the Lord's work, right? Trying to get justice out here. Shout out to Ro Khanna. Shout out to all the other activists as well, who's been constantly keeping their foot on this situation. And thank you for Melania for being stupid because there was nobody else thinking of was no you. You brought the Streisand effect into full effect because now everybody's talking about how were you involved.
Yeah, I do really want to emphasize too. Obviously, I have anti-capitalist critiques of pretty much everybody in the American government, but I will say it does take a very special and particular kind of courage for what like Ro Khanna and Tom Massey are doing, because you are literally sticking a finger in the eye of some of the most depraved and powerful people on the planet. So yeah, really, like it takes a lot of cojones to do something like that. And yeah, you can't, obviously you can make cynical analysis about like, you know, how they're trying to advance their career doing X, Y, or Z, but yeah, like you don't do put yourself at that level of risk and scrutiny unless there's some sincerity behind what you're doing. So, again, hats off to both of them and everybody else who's obviously been, trying to expose the Epstein stuff.
Yeah. Um. So I have a few other stories I want to talk about, but I've been taking up a lot of time. What are you talking about?
Well, I wanted to actually take a quick look across the Atlantic and talk about a big loser. So,
Oh
some
yeah.
of you may have heard about this, but it is a very it's very seismic, particularly um, the way I'm talking about Victor Orban and his conservative government in Hungary, which they just had a landslide defeat, something like 70. I think it was something like a 77% turnout, election turnout in Hungary, and yeah, something like almost an entire plurality voting for the opposition. Um, and
Well, the person that won is a center right candidate.
that is
Like
that is true. I do. Yeah, I'm gonna touch on that as well. It's not
yeah,
like, yeah, no, this ain't some situation where like there was a socialist revolution or even like a Dem Soc got elected, but it is at least it is a step in the right direction, and I want to kind of frame this too, and it's in the right context for our listeners to understand, especially how Orban's project is inextricably intertwined with what the Trump administration and Project 2025 was trying to do. But he's been in power for um, I believe something around like over a decade. I think a decade and a half maybe. And
10 years.
once he was voted in, he did a lot of the stuff we're witnessing the Trump administration doing in its first year. They were trying to rewrite the rules of their constitution. They're trying to pack their courts. They were gerrymandering their voting districts, and they were basically pioneering a model of authoritarianism that had basically like something that it had the veneer of democracy, but functionally it was a soft dictatorship where they basically taken a democracy and rigged all of the rules into the favor of the government that was in power. And this isn't just me speculating. This is something like there have been numerous like CPAC conferences in Budapest over the last decade, because a lot of conservatives have seen the Orban's project in Hungary as a proof of concept of what they're currently trying to do here. And the the reason that this is kind of so important is it does show that even within a compromised democracy, where you have this autocratic party that has rewritten the rules, and largely, Hungary and Orban's party was very successful at really reining in and taking over mainstream media. This is a process that is at full speed on the Trump administration under Larry Ellison. They are taking over CNN. They've already taken over CBS. Um, Orban was very successful in consolidating the media. But at the end of the day, because there was still a functioning democracy in Hungary, it took a lot of years of failure, economic failure in particular, for a lot of Hungarians to come around. And essentially, he was left with nothing but a lot of the culture war stuff. He was really doubling down on like anti-gay, anti-trans, rhetoric, but that wasn't enough. And I think it's a really strong parallel to what's going on right now, where you have the Trump administration, going after trans people, going after immigrants, etc. But the if you talk to anybody across the political spectrum lately, and the first thing they're probably going to bring up is gas prices. And to quote this is somebody who's a little more of a neoliberal neocon, it's like it's the economy, stupid. It's when you can't even offer the peanuts uh, to the people that you promised. They will eject. They'll throw your authoritarian butt out onto the street, and again, this is, it is also worth noting. Things could go in a different direction in the United States. It is not a foregone conclusion that our democratic mechanisms will safeguard us from Trump administration and the kind of um, goals of that movement of kind of establishing an authoritarian dictatorship inside the United States. However, I think it does show that it's a good proof of concept that even when you have when you have rigged all the rules in your favor, when you have rigged the media, um, I think it goes to show in this modern, even with all of the misinformation that goes around, people are smart enough to understand, when a government is not working for them. And that's not to say that, everybody can like we mentioned, the people of Hungary did not vote for, somebody on like the socialist left. There's a good quote from the Jacobin article. Some Hungarian socialists with whom I spoke during the campaign were not thrilled to have to vote for the lesser evil, but were thrilled by Orban's defeat. The rise of Magyar offers neither overnight change nor even the promise of it. The global shocks that helped kill off Orban's model are getting worse rather than better, and it seems unlikely that this defeat will chasten Trump. But what it did do is it hollowed out a lot of this kind of pro worker nationalist rhetoric that Orban was pushing out that you also saw from Trump in Trump 1 and Trump 2. And when that, even the veneer of that is completely hollowed out, which will likely happen in the months to come when we really start feeling the shocks from the Strait of Hormuz and the Iran war, you could see a very similar electoral effect where even a lot of the people who ostensibly, place their bets on Trump or part of the movement, they're going to be feeling the pain, and that might, take it in a different direction. Now, like I said, the guy that won, he was a right winger who quit Orban's government because of like corruption stuff. I think like a good comparison might be somebody like maybe like Tom Massey, or maybe even somebody like Tucker Carlson. So it's not that you're going you're that these factors are going to absolve America of its descent into fascism, but it does show that Orban's playbook is not ironclad, and the lessons that were incorporated in the Project 2025 um, are not strategically indefeatable. They can be ruled out, voted out, and really more importantly, pushed down by, again, the popular will of working people. And in this case, it expressed itself electorally, but I mean, it is good news. But it is not. I don't think I do. A lot of people, I think, have ignored the fact that Orban is not being replaced by somebody who wants to, necessarily talk, throw over the apple cart and turn Hungary into a social democracy. It's been replaced by somebody who shares a lot of the same ideological politics as Orban, but again, just like more anti-corruption and wants to bring things back to, again, wants to reset some of the more authoritarian impulses and return it to a more, kind of middle road democratic status quo. But
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I've been ranting about this for a while, Lawrence. So go ahead and take it.
No. Do you think no? So here's the thing. The thing that makes this interesting because we always have because as Americans we're very self-centered. We have to tie it back to America. JD Vance and Marco Rubio and multiple other right wingers from this administration went to stump for Orban. Went to Hungary in solidarity with him, right? Which one proves that even in other countries their message sucks. But 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 that the same playbook that he had for the last 16 years, because he's been running that country for the last 16 years, um, they were trying to implement or they're trying to replicate here in America. So we saw, we have been watching them try to copy the fascist authoritarian nature of that country and bring it back to America. And this is what in my opinion, this is my opinion and my speculation. I think that's what they're going to try to do in these next few years and after 2026 and 2028. They're going to try to replicate that. They're going to try to replicate that here, um, because they know they can't win off their own message. They know they can't win the message wars. They can't win on their policy, so they have to steal it, and they're going to try to steal it the same way Orban did for the last 16 years,
Yeah,
in my
no,
opinion.
no, absolutely. Like literally a lot of what's in Project 2025 was taken directly from, Orban's political project. Um, I'd say like I, one of the more unfortunate or things that are not necessarily in our favor is voting. Um, we are really seeing the right to vote under attack like it hasn't been in close to a century. The Save Act is having a hard time finding purchase in Congress, but that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be a myriad number of ways that they're going to try to challenge or upend, especially the midterm elections. But yeah, I think like it's a combination of, we haven't we've had a lot to sit with the Trump administration for a very long time, but without a real forward thinking alternative from another party, maybe the Democrats if they can get their crap together, um, we're just going to repeat this cycle over and over. If we get, oh, God forbid, like somebody like Gavin Newsom in like 2028, that's just going to, again, trying to return to the ratchet effect, not even the status quo, but try to make the reset a couple of things for Trump. You're a little bit better than the last guy, and then somebody else gets in, and we maybe have like we descend a little bit more slowly into fascism during those years, but it will continue apace when the next demagogue comes along. And history is a good instructor on this. That's America could have gone in a vastly different direction in the 1930s. There were a lot of there was a lot of ideological support for the Nazi project in the United States in those years, but FDR came along, and he was kind of put in there on a wave of union kind of worker discontent, and he effectively negotiated with the capitalist class to get a lot of these social programs that not only improved the lives of a lot of American, not every American, there's a whole We did a whole thing last year about how a lot of these programs disproportionately did not assist Black Americans, but I digress. But not only did that, but it helped. I feel like in a big way, it inoculated America from going into kind of going towards the road to fascism that Germany went on. And that's been one of my big concerns. I feel like we had that off ramp in 2016 and 2020, through Bernie Sanders or somebody like him, but because of the historical conditions of those years and who was in power in the government, it did not happen. So we're left with the insane clown fascism of the Trump administration. And that's not necessarily something we should just depend on being voted out. Yes, we saw Orban lose in Hungary and people getting fed up with his reign, but I don't want people to take the wrong lesson from that. I really believe unless like there is some transformative change in the United States, um, we're just going to be subject to more of these fascist clowns as the American empire winds down.
Oh yeah, man. I agree with that. I mean, I also agree that that we should be taking those lessons in history, right? The way that we talk about like the GI Bill and things of that nature. Yeah, it and how the social services that bring us Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, all these things, right? That has the social programs that the Republicans have been trying to kill off, right? The reason why uh we've been doing a lot more we've been able to be as stable as we are because we still fund those programs. We still support those programs, right? And the good that they've done. You can say the same thing about like the child tax credit and things of that nature. The things that we should be fighting for, the things that we should be expanding on to fight back against this fascism are more of those programs and expanding those programs to everyone. We can't go back to a system where we have something like the GI Bill, but black people can't have it, or gay people can't have it, or that trans rights doesn't matter, or things of that nature. We need to expand the circle of liberty. Every time we have done so, our country have done better. Every time we have put in resources into making sure that more lives are stable, our country is doing better. And making sure that that narrative and that reality is what people are seeing, is what people are seeing and feeling every day with their pocketbooks, is what will push back against this fascist ideology. Because you don't get right wing extremism and fascist ideology unless neoliberals are more focused about decorum and keeping the system as it is and not fixing the material conditions of its constituents.
No, yeah, absolutely. I was actually I was talking with my wife about the whole Hassan thing. It's like, do you think like centrist liberals were this obnoxious during the fall of the Weimar Republic? Were they like, Hitler's taken over parliament, but that guy with those socialist leaflets in the corner, he's the real problem. We got to do something about him.
Yeah, 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 absolutely, absolutely. I 100% think that they were doing that. They were doing that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you had some people that was like, "What are you doing? We don't have time for this. We don't have time for your garbage. Okay, stop it. Okay."
Mhm.
So before we get back to uh also one other thing, um I just wanted to laugh about this because I thought it was funny, and I still think it's funny. Um, Donald Trump crashing out and talking junk about uh Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens. Him
Well,
crashing
fine.
out.
If you don't like me anymore, I don't like you either. Yeah, it's basically
Yeah,
to sum
dog.
that up.
That is the biggest. Yes, dog. I, I, dog. That is. It was the most elementary school
It's like Mean
That is
Girl
what
stuff, is it?
elementary school art rants that I have seen, and I am here for it. Let those kids fight, okay? Let let see, but it made me think about leftist infighting, right? And I was like, and I am always for I am always for a good squabble. Let them squabble. We need to squabble sometime. We need to put the gloves on and fight it out sometime. The reason why is because after you do so, you learn from it. You learn from it, and you learn how to be better. Because if you're not training, if you're not training for the fight, if you're like if you're not training for the fight that the Republicans are going to bring, then when they come, you're more likely are going to get knocked out because you haven't been training. You haven't been training.
Yeah.
You haven't been putting the work in, and now you're caught flat-footed, right? We ain't got time for that. Like we need a good squabble, but we need to remember why we are squabbling. You know what I'm saying? Why we're
Uh-huh.
fighting.
Yeah.
But that was a quick side note, and the only reason why I bring that quick side note up is because this leads me back to the DNC. And I'm gonna read this. This is from the New Republic. I have the New Republic raw story. Um, uh, Shout out to Drop Site and the Lever. I also saw pieces of them writing about it. The Democratic National Committee panel on Thursday. This was 3 days ago, 4 days ago, right? Um, Killed a resolution condemning the growing influence of dark money and dark money groups like the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC, and an overwhelming majority of Democrats have have uh, have them even as a overwhelming majority of Democratic voters have an unfavorable view of the country that has committed genocide in Gaza, started wars in Iran, and continuing to bomb civilians in Lebanon. Uh, they have used massive. They have used massive outside spending to support and oppose candidates based on their positions regarding international conflicts and regional governments. Rise. Raising concerns about undue influence over the democratic democratic debates and policymaking, potentially constraining electoral officials' ability to represent the views of the constituents. Uh, that's a part of the new world. That's a segment out of the New Republic covering the matter. Raw Story also covered it. So did Democracy Now. So did uh, Jacobin. So did uh, Drop Site and The Lever. I could keep going on. I'm just reading. This is the one that I particularly read because they covered it. They covered it in a way that I really liked. Um, the voters overwhelmingly, Democratic voters, do not want to continue supporting and or giving our money to Israel. And the reason why I bring this up is because the new baseline for this is AOC. AOC was at uh, the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, right? She was at their conference in New York, and she committed to not voting for offensive weapons or defensive weapons, including funding for Iron Dome.
And I just want to make a quick aside. If you remember, we talked about it about a year ago, I think maybe a year and a half ago. There was actually, this is a big point of contention because she voted for defensive funding for
She
Israel.
voted.
And
She voted present. She voted present.
yeah,
She did not
voted
vote.
present. And that
She
was a
voted.
big that was controversial among a lot of the base. Who's like, you should have voted no. And I think the argument was, it's like, well, you want civilians to be harmed, and it's going deeper in the politics. Is Israel is a belligerent colonial state, and the Iron Dome is what allows it to behave with the kind of violent impunity that it has. I'm not going to go deep into that, but I'm just referencing to say,
Yeah.
AOC, that instance happened. She got a lot of pushback from the base. So, come a few
But,
months later, she's saying, like, in definitive terms, not supporting Iron Dome funding. That was direct result of people pressure from the base, and
yeah,
I always wanted to make sure that was pointed at. But yeah,
yeah, yeah. The TLDR was that, and also this is when Marjorie Taylor Greene was still, well, Marjorie Greene. The only reason why she was going by Marjorie Taylor Greene is because people kept was talking about AOC. She was copying that girl's style. So Marjorie Greene uh, had a resolution that Rashid Tlaib and Ilhan Omar also agreed with. But in her resolution was, we shouldn't be giving we shouldn't be giving uh funding to Iron Dome, but also to Ukraine as well. And people like AOC and others were trying to make a distinction between offensive weapons and defensive weapons, forgetting the fact that the defensive weapons that Israel uses, they will also use as offensive weapons. And that was the problem. That's the problem. The weapons that we were sending were being used offensively, even though they're supposed to be used defensively. That's not so. If you want them, if we want our attack dog, our forward operating base to play nice in the region, then we need to take away funding and weapons so that they will come to the table and talk to their neighbors. The establishment of the Democratic Party, who also takes funding from that country, who understands that money in politics and dark money in politics will influence campaigns and voters, and it will influence the representatives' priorities when it comes to their vote and how and representing their constituents. The Democratic establishment that's a part of the DNC panel, they were like, yeah, but we like that dark money. We like
yep,
this particular
hmm
dark money. We like them, so we're gonna stand with them, even though the base is saying we don't want this. We don't want nothing to do with this. We don't like this. Stop it. Is that Michael Jordan meme? Stop. Get
hmm
some help. Like
yeah, no, really,
and this, when we talk about meeting the moment, right? And um we talk about people, our representatives not representing how we feel, the anger in our country, right? But they will still take money from organizations that are diametrically opposed to the will of the voters. We need these politicians to understand, if they don't do or follow what we are asking them to do, that they will be replaced.
hmm
We need to get to replacing them. We need to get to replacing them.
a
Because
hundred percent, yeah.
if we don't, then there's going to be a lot. Like, I don't know if you saw the video of the dude at the warehouse setting the toilet paper
Oh
on fire.
yeah, yeah. There's been
There's
a
going
whole
to be a
spate of
lot,
them at this point, actually, but yeah.
dog. There's going to be a lot more of them. You saw, the only reason why I'm gonna bring this up, because I know that we ain't got a lot of time and this is my only quick two hits. I want to bring that up because the CEOs of the companies, they're starting to understand. Their employees are not happy with how they've been treating them. You saw what the CEO of Five Guys said, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. He basically he said he's like I'm raising my workers' wages, and he said some offhand remarks like, well, I don't really want to get Luigi or something like that.
He said, no, yeah. He said, I don't want. He said, I don't want to get Luigi. He's like, I don't want to get shot in the back of the head. I'm raising my, I'm raising the, I'm paying my employees more because I feel like they deserve it, and I don't want to get shot in the face. So you know what? Hey, as long as they understand, right? As long as he understands, then we gonna be all right.
Yep. Mm. All right.
So,
I think with that, Lawrence, why don't we close things out? I know I gotta go use a little DJ's room before my next show. Anything else before we close out?
yeah, no, me and you said that we were going to be doing some stuff next week, next 2 weeks. So people keep watch out for that. Me and Andy got some other stuff planned, some more content that we're going to be putting out. So yeah, watch out for that. But yeah, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.
All right, Lawrence, have a good one. Everybody else out there, thank y'all for listening. This has been Media Cyphers, your only source for what is it? Radio Evolution. Anyway, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast. You can find that on most podcasting apps. Stay tuned. Electropop therapy is next. Until next time, everybody, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.